continent is built on the site of an ancient Indian village. It was in July of 1916 that it formally came into existence, and which really took the name of Natchez. It was in March of 1978 that Natchez became the seat of the new Mississippi Territory. The Mississippi River was linked between people, markets, and a way of life. And the river became a single force that has molded the past and present character of South Central United States. The climate of Natchez is generally mild. There's comparable heavy rain from time to time. The Natchez Trace, now that's an antebellum home, and it's the Mississippi River, but the antebellum homes are there. There are about 40 antebellum homes that are available for touring. There are also families who live in the antebellum homes. So that's very much part of the history of Natchez. The town of Natchez, as I said, is built on the site of an ancient Indian village. And it was once the home of the Natchez Indians. Now today, the public can learn about Natchez and see how we lived and see the mounds and artifacts of Natchez. The Natchez American history, and it's called Forks of the Road, is a slave market site. And the primary slave markets in Natchez were located at the Forks of the Road. Natchez College, which was opened in 1885, is occupied by a historic mansion named Elmore. I live with my family, 2 sisters, my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother always lived with us, no matter where we went. In Natchez, we lived in a house we thought was, a great wooden house with 3 rooms, and we had an outhouse. So yes, we did have to use an outhouse. We were so happy to be in that house. We shared a lot of things. We had a lot of hand-me-down things. I was the youngest, so therefore I got all of the hand-me-downs. But I was very proud of them. My grandmother was a seamstress. She made most of our clothes, in fact, probably all of our clothes. And she also was a cook in one of the antebellum homes. And so we would remember my grandmother walking to work, coming home with food that she had prepared and was able to share with us. And we would meet her. We would walk and meet her knowing that there would be some different kinds of food that we would be able to enjoy. So it was a few years later that the people that my grandmother worked for actually offered to sell a home to her, and so we were able to move to a brick house, and we just knew that we were really living, but it was still a small house. We had to share everything, but we were just happy to be in a brick house versus a wooden house. I walked to school every day, me and my sisters and other friends, and we made the best of what we had. Religion played a very important part in our lives. We thank our parents for instilling that in us, and we were at church every Sunday, probably every day during the week, and so that meant a lot to us. The brick house that we finally moved to was actually on the railroad track, so it did separate a certain group from where we lived, but it was still, this brick house that we lived in. I've been told that my great-grandfather was the first African-American longshoreman doctor by the name of Charles Gaines, and so we're still trying to find the history of that. As far as the food that we had, it was food that was more homegrown food because we had a garden, and so we were able to use food from our garden. There was no, really elaborate store-bought food, pretty much the same menu all the time, but we were very happy to have it and know it was my ancestors that were more involved or toiled under slavery and lived on plantations and that, and no, I did not have to pick cotton, as Jametta had said, but we were told the stories of that. Why would anyone want to live in Mississippi? Well, I think now, I think in 20 minutes you can be anywhere in the city, from the stores to shopping. I think also there's a church on every corner, there's a school on every corner. I think that the now law enforcement and political people know you and can relate to you. I think that's very positive. I think if you're walking and you're not exercising, someone will stop along the road and offer you a ride. And if there's an emergency, you don't have to wait long. There's no stress. There's no freeway driving in Mississippi, so you can get around pretty conveniently. And also, as far as education, I think the teachers know you, and in fact, your school teacher would probably be your Sunday school teacher. So that makes it very nice. And then the Southern cooking. There's nothing better than the Southern cooking, so that would be another reason. And I think just enjoying the peace and tranquility in the South. It's kind of a laid-back environment. I enjoy going there. I still attend my class reunions as well as my school reunions. We have school reunions now, so I do still attend there, but it's on an ongoing basis. The city is fairly compact, so it makes it easy to tour the city, which would be another reason. And I think just as a visitor to pay attention to what African Americans have achieved and the contributions they've made would make you want to visit there, and also just the impact that it's had on the city, and I think our nation as a whole would be another reason you'd want to visit there. So thank you very much.
My family, actually, my brothers and sister, we were all from Los Angeles. However, our parents, both from Louisiana, from New Orleans. And you know, after listening to Shelley's presentation and some of the other presentations, I realized that my family we really are challenged at keeping track of our ancestors. Genealogy is not one of our strong points. But as you'll see, we make up in our prolificness. These are my grandparents. That is Ruby Senior Felton on the left, and on the right is my grandmother, Eulalie. And I really don't, I'm ashamed to say this, I don't know what her maiden name was. That is a family reunion in 1979.
Wow.
As you see, we kind of look like a United Nations contingency. And I can tell you, I remember this picture. It was probably 1,000 degrees in that gymnasium. It's the middle of August in New Orleans with no air conditioning. Thank you for pointing that out, Shelley. I really appreciate that. Yeah, 79. Shelley, that's the same suit I had on at our graduation, if you're curious. Shelley and I went to elementary school together. These are my dad's brothers and sisters. Now, at the time of this reunion, we had, fortunately, only had to bury 3 Feltons. Ruby Senior, Eulalie, and Ruby the Third was my first cousin who died in Vietnam. But what's interesting of this picture, and I'll kind of run through the list here real quick, starting with the left. They're sitting in age order. My Uncle Nick was the oldest of the family. Ruby the Second, my Aunt Marie, my Aunt Noella, my Uncle Sam, Uncle Vernon, Uncle Charlie, Aunt Ramona, Uncle Thaddeus, and my father in the end, Escamillo, who's named, actually I do know he's named after my great-grandfather, but that's pretty much about all about him that I do know. Very interesting cast of characters right here. Since this picture, we have we've lost quite a few of the group. Everyone to the left of my Uncle Charlie, with the exception of Aunt Marie, the second female from the left, Uncle Nick, Uncle Ruby, Aunt Noella, Aunt Marie's still alive, Uncle Sam, and recently Uncle Vernon. But each in their own rights, growing up, were very strong role models for me. They each had something very unique or something very that I felt was respectable that they did or contributed to the world, at least for our family. But the characters of the bunch, however, just a little inside joke here, are the two on the far right, my Uncle Thaddeus and my father. They were kind of the Rat Pack two of the bunch. My grandparents were very staunch Catholics. My dad, my grandfather, was a painter by trade. He was very involved with the church, as others spoke. Back in that day, down south, there were separate facilities. So the church that the non-whites had to go to, my grandfather, Grandfather Ruby, did all the painting for the church, as well as the community. If someone needed work done and didn't have the money, it was never an issue that they could contact the church, and through the church, Felton and Sons would take care of the matter for them. This is my mother, Marilyn Felton. Now, my mother grew up on the other side of the Mississippi in a little small town called Algiers, which is still in New Orleans. It's not New Orleans proper. A little different of a story there. My mother had lost both of her parents by the time she was, I think, by 11, closer to 10, which left her to care for my aunt, the two of them. They were raised by another aunt, but again, the photographic history gets a little shaky in terms of identifying who the actual key players were. That's my dad. That's me. Over the years, actually the last few years, my father has fallen ill. He's had a number of strokes and is confined to a wheelchair. But this is the man that I remember. My dad could do anything, particularly when I was that age. This is our family today. My mom passed away in probably about 10 years after that last photograph was taken. That picture also, the previous picture is missing my brother. And I apologize to my brother in advance because it was late when I was pulling together these pictures, and I was like, you know what, I need a picture of Greg, but I just don't have the energy to go farther to find a better shot for him. He is not sleeping, and the humorous part about this picture is that out of the four of us, he's the only one who does not wear eyeglasses, yet. I've cropped the picture, but he's actually got a cell phone, and he's holding it away from his body to try to read the numbers in full-blown denial that it's time for some reading glasses. But that's the brother right above me. That's Greg. Next slide. This is my Aunt Beverly. This is my mom's sister. She passed. Aunt Beverly unfortunately passed about 2 years ago now. And her husband, Uncle Kenny, and two of their three sons. The third son is this picture predates him, but they were one of the first black families to move into the city of Inglewood. This is circa 1960, 1961. My Uncle Kenny was an engineer for, I believe it was for Rockwell, but again, also one of the first African Americans to be in part of their engineering, their engineering teams. And that's my daughter. This picture's probably about, I don't know. That was their first Holy Communion, so that's probably at least 4 or 5 years ago now. But that's briefly that's my family. And in terms of my experience, I think I'd like to just touch on a couple of situations. As a family, we used to drive to New Orleans and spend summers in New Orleans almost every year. And I'd say I probably wasn't much older than Kayla in this picture one trip. And we would drive, and it was just a bearish 2.5 days in the car with my parents and my brothers and sisters. The classic, are we there yet? Will you quit touching me? And Texas by far is the worst. You can go to sleep You're in Texas, you wake up, you're in Texas. You know, it's like, God, are we still in Texas? But eventually you make it through Texas, and then there's a little stretch through Louisiana that's kind of nondescript. And you arrive in New Orleans. And I remember this one particular summer, it's a 2.5-day trip. You know, I'm not doing a lot of driving, but it seems very tiring to me in the back seat. And it can't be 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. And I literally opened up the door, and I got 2 feet out onto the street and let out a big stretch. And a kid, he looked like he was about my age, rides by on a bike and sees it, and we lock eyes as he passes me. And he's got his little dirt bike, and he jams on the brakes and does a hook slide and stares me back down again, and I'll never forget this. And he says, white boy, your shoes don't shine, you got yellow teeth, and you look like Frankenstein. I'm 8 years old, and I'm really tired, and I'm really not in a good mood. But that really kind of disturbed me. And eventually I got over it as the trip began, but it's something that just always stuck with me, is that after walking you through kind of a picture album of my family, we come in all different shades of colors. And for me, particularly when I was growing up, when I was a lot younger, at times it placed me in a position where I felt like I was in the middle with no idea exactly which side to run to, kind of caught in a crossfire. I was born in 1967, so the realities that Jametta explained were not the realities that I grew up in, but you still have that pretext and that understanding of what that reality must have been, and so you have a respect for it. But for me, it was very surprising to find that same dynamic coming from the community to which I belonged, based on skin tone or your physical traits. And stories with my father and my uncles and my aunts, it cuts both ways. Both sides are equally guilty for that type of tension and that type of discrimination. They would tell me that in New Orleans, they would have parties in which they would tape a brown paper bag, a lunch bag, on the side of the door. And if you were darker than the lunch bag, you couldn't come into the party. Or they would have a straight comb tied to the door on a string, and you had to pull a straight comb through your hair. And if you couldn't pull a straight comb through your hair, then your hair is too nappy, and then you can't come into this party. Now, the lunch bag I could probably get past, but the straight comb, that'd be a done deal. But nevertheless, it just shows that the tension and the prejudice and the comes from both sides. The dysfunctionalness comes from both sides.
I want to share with you a poem written by, hope I can pronounce his name right, Mahilom Shweti, who was born in South Africa in 1982, and he is the son of Steve Tshweti, who was imprisoned with Nelson Mandela and other political prisoners on Robben Island before the end of apartheid, if you're familiar with apartheid in South Africa, which ended in 1994. And thereafter, Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa. So I'm going to share with you a poem written by him called A Country for All. Blurry visions of a perfect tomorrow get clearer by the day. There is hope in what tomorrow will display. Visions based on fallen soldiers' words, their dreams build hope. Unity sutures the battered body of this nation, but only in action. Unity needs you and I to join hands. Let's heal yesterday's wounds together. Give purpose to empty, needy palms. Let's all be orphans to apartheid and seek a solution. Let's all be children of revolution, a country for all. Together we stand, divided we fall, a country for all. If I could plant my words as seeds in tomorrow's soil, I would water them with hope and ambition, and grow wide crops of my vision to feed my people's minds. My words would be eaten by those who hunger for more than just existence. My words would be nutrients serving as gross blueprints. My words to the soul would be like sunrise to one's eyes, a promise of sunlight. Seeds rise to feed the soul. Forget not your purpose. Erase misery's bonds. Overflow into cups of pleasant times. Feed my nation on fruits of thought, the taste of endless possibilities. Thank you.
From our presentations and our story today, you can hear how important it is, I think, for all of us, for your children, for generations to come, to really take the time to start writing your story. My mom went to the California African American Museum. They're having an excellent exhibit there this month. If you have a chance, I encourage you to go with your children especially. There's some information up here about the exhibits that are there now, but they have these, so I made copies. So please take one and just just take a minute and write down who you know or what you know already, and where you have holes, start asking those questions to your elders and start filling it in now.
What we have done today, and hopefully you all got it, we started with the diasporas and the important that knowing one's past is very important to go forward in the future. As Shelley explained the definition of Sankofa. So hopefully some of this background history has helped you to understand that within the Americas or within America, there are so many people who belong to the diaspora. So please don't make the mistake when you see a black person on the street to automatically assume that person's African American, because there's so many histories, and I know there are many people here who have so many histories, but all the histories are very important. So I think it was great that everyone was able to share their, such as Shelley as well as Letitia, just to share, everyone to share the history that they've endured or that their forefathers have endured. So I would like to first thank you all for attending today.